Dive into the pulse of Bills football with Turf to Tape, where veteran sideline reporters Sal Capaccio and film room guru Erik Turner deliver a one-of-a-kind podcast experience, combining Sal's unparalleled access to players and coaches with Erik's razor-sharp film breakdowns. The show bridges the gap between casual fans and hardcore enthusiasts. This is Turf to Tape.
This is Turf to Tape, presented by Thin Man Brewery. I'm your host, Erik Turner. As always, joined by my man, Sal Capaccio from WGR. Sal, you're on the road. You're a busy man. What's going on, brother?
I am in the parking lot right now of One Bills Drive, ready to go in for Sean McDermott's 3:15 p.m. press conference. Everything's a little different this week, obviously, with the short week. So Tuesday today is like a normal Wednesday. The only difference is because of the game happening on Sunday, they're giving, my interpretation is they're giving players a little more time to recover their bodies before getting out for their walkthrough today. So McDermott at 3:15. We're going to hear from him about injuries. It's a walkthrough today, so it's an estimation on the injury report. We'll get our first injury report today, and then a full practice tomorrow, which will be Wednesday. Thursday will be like a normal Friday, kind of, again, light walkthrough, and then Friday's travel day. So, yeah, on the road, a lot going on today, and it's a very short but exciting week.
Yeah, and, before we move forward, before we start talking about the Broncos game, we need to recap the 27-24 win against the Jags. And so you were there, down at at ground zero. What was that stadium like? Because I feel like a lot of people were, I don't want to say surprised, but were shocked at how much of a great environment that was against the Jags.
Oh, listen, 2017, I remember, it was just incredible with so many Bills fans. The first playoff game, obviously, with, after breaking the drought. And this was similar. I would say, Erik, there weren't as many Bills fans, but, there's still a ton of them, right? You're talking about still a fan base that travels like crazy, like no other, but they were super loud and it was intense. It was intense throughout the game. Every play matters in the playoffs, like every little detail, every play. And anytime one team did one thing or the other, you could just feel it in the air. Now, then you get to the end of the game and Cole Bishop has the interception. Well, what I'll take away from this game from being on the sidelines is Cole intercepts it. I hear Chris Brown in my earpiece, call the interception. And you could hear the Bills fans roar, like, oh, my God, they intercepted it. Then there was this slight for a quick second, they come down, and then they realize the game's over. We just won. And they start going crazy again. It was amazing. And that's what I'll remember. And then this just sustained cheering and people hugging each other. Red, white, and blue. It was awesome.
Wow, that's great. It sounded like it was a great atmosphere. I know the broadcast team really highlighted that and how during the intro, they couldn't even really hear each other talk when they were doing their monologues. And so I felt like the stage was set, and man, was that a great game. So talk about the defense, man. I thought the defense, yes, they ended the game, but I felt like they have really continued with the role that they've been on, at the tail end of this year leading into the playoffs.
No doubt. I think the end of the game gets the credit. The start of the game was great too. They have a 3-and-out to start the game. They set the tone right away. The first three plays of the game, I think they were all three passes, if I remember right. And actually, the first was an end-around run, and Matt Milano stuffs it,
Blew it up.
So he blows it up, and right away, you're like, okay, Jacksonville's behind the sticks. This is what you want. You want to make them one-dimensional. You want to make sure that, okay, they have to throw the ball now. They did throw the ball the next two plays. The Bills were ready for it. I think from there, the Bills did a really good job throughout the game of really just making sure Jacksonville didn't stay on schedule. You look at the run numbers, they were a little too much for my liking, no doubt about it, for Jacksonville. But they weren't able to really stay on schedule all game, right? And the Bills forced them into situations where they said, okay, we know you have to throw here. We're going to dial up some different disguises. We talked all week last week. I said it on the radio. You said it here. Pre and post snap was going to be important in this game because of how the Jags with Liam Cohen talk in the headset of Trevor Lawrence, and 15 seconds, then 14, the Bills can start changing the picture a little bit. I'm going to tell you a great anecdote. This is why I love being on the field and on the sidelines doing my job is, so I hear all the stuff going on through the microphones, right? Just you do on TV too, but when you're down there and you have the radio broadcast, the raw feed, you hear the parabolic mics. There on the Shaq Thompson interception, right before that, I heard Trevor Lawrence say, he either said one right, or one high, one high. I couldn't tell what he said, but you could definitely hear him say that. And as soon as I heard him say that, I saw Jordan Poyer go back to too high.
Right.
And then Shaq Thompson drops into that Tampa 2 and he intercepts the pass. It was incredible. It was playing out in front of me like a cinema.
Yeah, and that's important when you're talking, the headset and the coach being able to kind of coach up the quarterback, a guy like Trevor Lawrence, up until that, that
Yep.
the headset is kind of shut off, and kind of give him some pointers. Hey, you can, whether it's, hey, this is your hot. Hey, they're in a one high. Hey, normally they like the trap coverage when they show this formation. And so that communication is huge. But once that headset is shut off, it's really up to the quarterback from that 15-second marker of the play clock to diagnose what he sees prior to snap. But then the defense obviously spun into some crazy coverages in this game. It was a huge thing going into this game, and we saw it play out, as you said. And after the game, Liam Cohen, he acknowledged this. And so I want to play this clip real quick about Cohen talking about the Bills shifting pre to post snap looks and how that was such a key factor, especially like you said early, for the Bills defense at getting them behind the sticks, aside from some of the runs they broke loose here. So listen in.
Obviously, it's a pretty solid pass defense. They were doing some stuff pre-snap, post-snap, changing the picture a little bit, and just didn't really get going.
And that's huge because, like I said, changing the picture, changing and spinning coverages, that's important. But the thing is, like, it changes the windows, the passing windows. So maybe Trevor Lawrence post-snap was expecting to see that single high look. They roll into a two high coverage. There are different passing windows. And when you're talking about an offense that relies on timing and with Trevor Lawrence, he's a great player. He's a very good player. But there are times where he only reads half the field. And I thought the Bills did a great job of kind of having a similar game plan to Tua, where they were taking away those early reads. And so then Trevor's like, oh, I started on the wrong side. Let me look to the other side. Hold on. Why is there two man on this side? This is not what I expected prior to the snap.
I agree with you. Trevor is a very talented quarterback. There's no doubt about it. Liam Cohen is a really, really talented play caller, offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
They're in their first year together still, right? And they're still learning all of that, and they're probably just going to only get better. I was actually surprised when I went back and looked at some of the numbers for this game coming up to see that Bo Nix actually has a higher completion percentage than Trevor Lawrence, but they're both not really high. And I think one of the keys in this game was he only completed 60% of his passes.
Right.
Again, there were some throws he made, and he's athletic, and he could do a lot of things, but when you only complete 60% of your passes, when you force a quarterback to only complete 60% of his passes, okay, well, that every one of those incompletions equals another down and distance that you have an opportunity to now put them in a situation where you know that they're going to be throwing. The Bills didn't have a great pass rush in this game. We know that that's just not their calling card right now. They struggle to get to the quarterback when they're rushing for. It can happen once in a while. They did, I think, at times impact and pressure Lawrence in different ways, though. Greg Rousseau had a couple of quarterback hits. He had the only sack. They also got their hands up on a couple of balls to impact a couple of plays, and I thought that was really big.
And that's a great segue to our next segment, because the Bills had 8 plays on the ball. If you're talking interceptions, pass breakups, and batted passes, and it's something we talked about a couple months ago here on the show, that the Bills weren't getting their hands on the balls. Whether we're talking aside from batted passes, they had some batted passes early, but on the back end they weren't making plays on the ball. And those rotations by the Bills in this game, the plays on the ball were there. And it's something that going in, I know a bunch of the players kind of keyed and scouted on Trevor Lawrence. When you're talking batted passes, he had 19 batted passes going into this game. That was the most among all quarterbacks. And so talk about how the Bills are constantly, first of all, training that and practicing that, and how we start to see, especially when you talk about teams trying to get the ball out quickly in that quick game and in that rhythm game.
Is this true, by the way? Someone just wrote that Mike Tomlin has stepped down. Mike, okay, I did not know that. Thank you for letting me know. We're doing this, and I don't have anything in front of me.
It was his decision. Apparently, Colin said that it's being reported as Tomlin's decision. So the parting ways.
Okay, very interesting. Another piece of football to cover. It happened so quickly. I am so glad we're not covering those kinds of things this week, and head coach searches, and I've been through those before, and we're preparing for a game. So one thing that you write a lot on X, and I love this, and you're so right, and we both know this because we've been around the game for so long. You write, every drill has a purpose. And when I'm at practice and I film something and I put it out on X, and it looks like it's just guys going through the motions, what are they doing? It looks like they're just out there like kids playing around, having fun, right? Oh, what are they doing that for? And you always say, every drill has a purpose. Not only is it a big picture, but a small picture. What I mean is every drill is something you rep all the time. Like there's a lot of drills you rep all the time. Getting hands up, getting hands up, getting hands up. Then there are certain things you do on a weekly basis that say, this week, we have to concentrate on this particular area. So let's do this certain thing. And you see that manifest itself
Game plan
in
specific.
a drill.
Yes.
100%. So every drill has a purpose. You know what drill they work almost every single day? Getting hands up, getting hands up, getting hands up. That was a big impact. And Bo Nix is not the tallest quarterback in the world, right? He's smaller than Trevor Lawrence. You know what the Bills will do this week? They'll try and get their hands up. That's what they'll try and do. And it almost resulted in a couple different interceptions. The one that Deion Walker got his hands on, and Shaq Thompson almost had his second pick of the game when he did that, right? And Deion Walker's the perfect guy with it, his size. And just getting your hands in passing windows sometimes can matter. Eric doesn't have to be touching the ball.
The pass that Deion Walker batted down, that if that was thrown and down the field and completed, that could have been a touchdown. That's how wide open the tight end Brenton Strange was on that play. If Deion didn't get his hands up, that could have been 6 points at the very least in field goal range. And you talked about Bo Nix. You know, Trevor Lawrence, including the postseason, he has 20 batted passes because of the Bills, obviously adding a couple to that. Bo Nix has the 5th most at 14. So it's something that we talked about last year in the film room going into this game against the Broncos in the playoffs. Getting your hands up, it's still going to be a point of contention and you know, trained in practice this week. But one guy that did get his hands on the ball on the back end was Tre'Davious White, and he's our tapped in player of the game, presented by Thin Man Brewery. An awesome game, 2 tackles, 1 reception allowed for 3 yards on 4 targets, 3 pass breakups. Talk about Trey White's game and how he's elevated his game back to his old form in the last month and a half.
I could argue this is the best version we've ever seen of Tre'Davious White.
That's fair.
And the reason why I would say that is I don't know, Eric, if I've ever seen him this aggressive. He is attacking the football like I've never seen him. He's always been a good cover guy. When he was at his best, he was a really good cover guy. He was a guy that when the ball came his way, he'd do a great job to get his hand on it, knock it down. Not a big interception merchant. Why? Because, you know, again, a few things. He likes to make sure he's in the right position.
Right,
He's not gonna really hurt you by taking really big risks and mistakes. He's aggressive right now. He attacked the ball on Brenton Strange on that play on the Bills sideline. He attacked the ball over the middle of the tight end and knock it away. That was a big time play. Like, that's a touchdown if he doesn't hit that away. And then, of course, he attacked the ball on the final play. So I asked him after the game, walk me through each of those plays. He makes 3 big plays. First one, Brenton Strange, zone coverage. Second one, zone coverage against tight end. Third one, man-to-man. And that's a play across the middle where he's been beaten on a little bit more this year. Gets his hand on it, tips it in the air. There's Cole Bishop. I think Tre'Davious White right now is playing more aggressive than I've ever seen him, and I think that might be the best version of Tre'Davious White that I've seen.
Yeah, I pulled up your interview in the locker room real quick, so I'll play it for the listeners.
Well, we was just in zone coverage the first 2, and I just got a good read on the quarterback. Broke on the ball, just believe in what I saw from film study. And then on the last play, we was just a couple man-to-man. You know, I just felt him leaning against me. And instantly when that happens, she's about to break. So I just felt the break point, and I just went with it. And when I broke and looked, the ball was coming, and I just tipped it.
I love what you said about, you know, the coverages that he was in, because that's the thing. He's making plays on the ball in a multitude of coverages. Cover 3 on the one down the seam to the tight end. He was in Palms coverage, which is more like a trap coverage where, hey, 2 runs out, I can, you know, that corner's going to jump it. You saw him do that. And then the last one was more of like a man-to-man coverage, you know, with a guy in a hole, which is Cole Bishop. And usually when you play that type of coverage, you don't want to get beat inside. That is like where you can't get beat. If you guys remember, Levi Wallace, Tyreek Hill against the Chiefs, that was 2-man. And you saw Levi Wallace get beat inside for the big play. So that's what's been so impressive with Trey, especially given his age, is that he's trusting his eyes. He's trusting his technique. I do think he is playing aggressive. And for years, when he was that aggressive player, he was getting called a lot for a lot of holding calls, pass interference calls. His technique and his eyes have been so in, and feet have been so in unison that we're not seeing that happen all that often. And I agree with you. I think he's making some really, really big waves on the defensive side ball, and could be quite possibly one of their best players, if not their best player on defense.
Yeah, he was the best player on the field for the Bills outside of Josh Allen in this game. No doubt. And it's funny. We don't. Christian Benford was in coverage, I think, on the 1 touchdown pass, but it's not like he hurt the Bills either. I mean, those 2 corners are playing really well, and obviously Taron Johnson. Parker Washington was the only guy who really hurt the Bills because they didn't really have anywhere else to go. Yeah. They relied on their tight ends, Brenton Strange. He had a couple balls thrown his way, made a couple plays, but that was about it. Brian Thomas Jr. made a couple catches, but it really did not hurt the Bills. Their passing game, 207 yards passing, 60%. Yeah, 3 touchdowns, but there was no point in the game where I thought that Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars passing game was really hurting the Bills, other than when they took advantage of a backup safety coming in the game late and Jordan Hancock, because of going back to different things you can't do now as much when you have Jordan Poyer versus Jordan Hancock. So this week, a lot of people wondering what's going to happen if Jordan Poyer can't play, which it looks like that's probably the case.
Yeah.
I would say this. My guess is maybe Cam Lewis then becomes the safety. And why didn't it happen Sunday? Well, you're probably having Cam mostly as your dime safety. So if you move him your primary safety, you're actually moving 2 different guys when you go to dime coverage. You have a different safety, a different dime safety. And if they do go to Jordan Hancock, folks, don't underestimate a full week of reps as the starting safety versus not having that full week as a backup is a huge difference in knowing exactly what you need to do.
Yeah, preparing during the week rather than just getting thrown on the field because of injury is a big difference. And it was nice for him. I know I will say I do think he struggled, but of course, in that tough situation, in that environment, in the playoffs, that's a whole different speed. We're talking the game, the speed of the game, but also mentally and having to process everything. That's all ratcheted up. So regardless if it's him or Cam Lewis, I do expect the Bills to have a really good plan against the Broncos, a team that, again, they have seen before recently. And so, again, Trey White, player of the game for us, tapped in player of the game, presented by Thin Man Brewery. And if you guys haven't heard, Mafia Light, presented by Thin Man Brewery, hits different with just 3.5% ABV and only 80 calories per 12-ounce can. Drinks like water with notes of beer. It's the first craft Pilsner of its kind, brewed and packaged here in Western New York, a true game changer for local beer lovers. So go ahead and get a couple cases of that stuff at your local grocery store. We appreciate them joining us this year for Turf to Tape. So
can I answer this question here? Pumpkin says, is Savage an option at safety? Here's the way I read it. I think Savage will be active. The Bills really, really believe in making sure they have guys who have some time on task together. You know what I mean? Like, Savage just has not played back there on the back end as much. He could be the dime safety, though, if you make Cam Lewis your safety or Jordan Hancock. I think to me, putting Savage back there as your starting safety along with Cole Bishop, not sure if that's what you want to do when he hasn't really played and communicated like that with him, but you never know. But that's why I would read it.
As far as defense, any other arrow ups, downs for that side of the ball?
I mean, I think that Matt Milano, again, is just showing that he is just as quick to the trigger, just as mentally on top of everything as we've ever seen. And right now, knock on wood, he's healthy and it's showing up. He's making plays in open space again, the way that we used to see Matt Milano make plays in open space. And then, of course, Cole Bishop continues to develop and to be around the ball is, he's always seems like he's around the ball somewhere, right? How about, did you see Dan Orlovsky's breakdown of when he talked about culture? I think you did, because I think I saw it from your retweet. Yep. And one of the plays he makes and he makes a point about culture, about guys, there's a buy-in to make sure that they're not the one. They get beat. They rally to the ball. They do all this. And there's a play in there he shows where Travis Etienne catches the ball, and if Cole Bishop does not tackle him, right, it's a touchdown. It's a 60-yard touchdown. I mean, Cole Bishop is doing all the little things right now that he didn't do early in his career because he didn't have that time on task.
And I love that you said he's always around the ball. That is very much how I used to describe Matt Milano early on. Did he make mistake? 100%, but he did it at 110 miles an hour. And yes, he's always around the ball, but he's always flying around the ball. The guy is, he will sacrifice his body in that cut up from Dan Orlovsky. He made that tackle on Etienne on a little check down that really saved the touchdown, but he also came from his post high safety look on a third down scramble by Lawrence, where, it forced 4th and 2, where Shaq Thompson came up on the stop and the Bills eventually got the ball thanks to the challenge by McDermott. So I agree. Bishop, he's going to even have to step it up, I think, in this game even more, with no Poyer likely not to play because McDermott said he's week to week. So I assume Poyer's not playing. So I think Bishop's going to have to pick it up a little more, especially if you're talking, being on the road in Denver. One of our listeners says Cole seems to have his eyes open every play. No doubt. He's definitely playing with very good vision, and he's coming down, flying around to the ball. I would agree on that side. So the offense, let's go to offense. Yeah. The crowd, we talked about it. You set the stage for that, and how, the ruckus crowd there, and how when the Bills are on offense, that is what they're dealing with. And I was told from players on the offensive side of the ball that communication was a priority this week going down to Jacksonville. I can only imagine what it's like talking about stressing things and coaching things during the week. The communication that they're going to have to deal with down there, but also the altitude when you're talking Mile High Stadium.
Yeah, somebody asked a little while ago if the Bills will do anything different to prepare for the altitude. They're not going to travel out there early, folks. They're not going to do that. You have to remember, okay, it's already a short week. The game is on Saturday. There's already a 3-hour flight out there that you're going to be out there on Friday. If you were to travel on Thursday, that's even less time to be here at the facility for banged up guys, all the different things that you need here to prepare for a game to get you ready to go out there. You go out there and you're out there for 2 days. You're in a foreign place. You're in a hotel for 2 nights. You're not having the same facilities. You're not having the same training and practice facilities. So no, they'll prepare their bodies best they can. They'll have things on the sidelines ready for them. And, I've been to Denver. Everybody reacts differently to it. I think there's a lot made of it. I'm sure it does impact some people some ways. But I think that they'll be very prepared. They play in a lot of weather, a lot of different kinds of weather. Of course, that's going to be a difference. And of course, the crowd noise. I mean, this is a different animal than Jacksonville. This is a really loyal fan base. It's been around a long time. They're very, very, they're very loyal, and they're not going to be dumping their tickets, and selling them off to Bills fans. It's a longer trip for Buffalonians. I'm sure there's going to be some out there, but you're going to be dealing with a hostile environment. I think communication this week, again, is going to be absolutely paramount. I am amazed. I really am. If you ever go to a game, folks, you watch, I don't care who it is, the Bills or anybody, watch the road team and how well they can communicate amidst all of the noise. It's simply incredible. These guys, how great they are at doing that. I'm impressed all the time. Nonverbal communication, hand signals. People always ask me, one of the questions I always get, why do I always see the lineman reach his hand out? Isn't that a false start?
100% all the time.
It's not. That's right. It's not a false start. He's not simulating a snap. What he's doing is he's looking behind him to make sure that when Josh Allen raises his leg or claps, that means he's ready for the ball. He pushes his arm in front of himself so the center sees that so he can snap it. You don't want the center looking back. So you have the guard look back, then look forward, push his arm up. The center sees it. The center snaps it. That's what a silent count is.
Yeah, and that's something I refer to as a cadence ritual or a snap ritual. And I thought the Bills did a great job of using that in the game against the Jags, again, in that hostile environment of Torrance doing that, making it seem like they're going to snap it, but they don't. And that did a great job for the offensive line and Josh at uncovering the rotations they were going to drop into coverage wise, but also what was really important in this game on who's rushing, who's dropping. And, the Jags, they're a really good defensive front. If you're talking like that front seven, and they're very diverse and they do some cool things. And in that, snap ritual and changing up the snap count, it was huge in this game for letting the Bills get Josh Allen comfortable. I think that is one thing in this game that Josh, he felt very comfortable, looked very comfortable. But before we get to the passing game, the running game struggles. Like James Cook, 15 rushes, 46 yards, only a long of an 11-yard run. Explain why staying committed to that running game, even when it wasn't working, was so important to the Bills offense in this game against the Jags.
So let's go back to some games like Houston is one, maybe Atlanta, where there's plays where you think, Josh, you got to throw it away, right? Don't take a long sack. Don't take a negative play. Well, all those things add up. So now instead of, having 2nd and 10, you're in 2nd and 15. You have to throw the ball. Instead of, let's say it's a 2nd and 3, right? And then you take a sack and it's 3rd and 7 instead of just throwing it away and it's, 3rd and 3. In this game, Josh didn't do those things. There weren't a lot of negative plays, but the biggest thing was it was pretty much a 1-score game through the whole game. And when it's a 1-score game, you don't have to abandon the run completely. Even if it's not working the way you want it to, you can rely on it to go to it and say, okay, we're still going to keep you honest. We're still going to stay on schedule because this game isn't out of hand right now. Yes. Like if we can overcome what's happening because the scoreboard isn't out of reach. So I think the biggest key going down to Denver, a team that is, oh, by the way, number 2 against the run this year, you just faced the number 1, is again, keeping this game within the margins. Don't take those negative plays. Field goals are okay if you have to take a field goal. You don't want it. If you can get a touchdown, that's fine. I bring up the Josh Allen thing because it takes you out of field goal range when you do that. Yep. Keep the scoreboard within your reach. Keep it within a 1-score game. Even if things aren't going your way, you can stay with the run and still be a 2-dimensional offense. And therefore, you still have the threat of doing both.
And that's kind of the Bills' game script. That's the way they want to play. They want to run the clock down. They want to control the tempo. And coincidentally enough, the Jags are just ahead of them when we're talking pace of play and snapping the ball between 1 to 5 seconds left on the play clock. They much like the Bills, to do the same thing. And they did it even more. They snapped the ball with 1 to 5 seconds left on the play clock 50% of the time. And that was like 10% higher than the norm. So that, in a way, shrinks down how many opportunities you have as an offense. And so essentially what you're saying is, I'm not going to have a lot of opportunities. Who's going to perform at a higher level? Trevor Lawrence, Josh Allen. Obviously, Allen had a leg up in this game. I thought Josh was amazing, but he did get some help from the scheme. I thought the quick game was there for Josh because of the scheme being, so good and guys being open within structure of the offense. But Joe Brady did some cool things as far as protections go, and you asked about it in his presser yesterday with Ty Johnson out. And again, can they use Cook in pass pro? Yes. Do they? Yes. Ray Davis? Yes. But I thought what Joe did at using not just tight ends and running backs as chippers and help to those 5 offensive linemen, but using wide receivers, in those roles, kind of threw a little curveball to the Jags defense. And so you asked Joe Brady about that, and I loved his answer at his presser yesterday. So listen.
Yeah, I mean, I think you try to grow your offense throughout the season, right? Not just year to year and game to game. And how can you find different ways where, hey, you might have it's not always a tight end chipping, or it's not always a running back or receiver chipping, and getting alignments where it looks like you're chipping and you're not, just so that we're not predictable in terms of when we align, what's happening and those type of things. And, we were playing an elite defensive line, and, we couldn't let them impact the game. You don't want to make a living where you're chipping regularly and whatnot, usually more sacks happen when you're keeping either extra guys in protection, or you're getting 3 guys on the routes and that 4th guy's taking a little longer or whatnot. But I think there's a time and a place, and as long as you're keeping your quarterback comfortable, especially early, I thought that was important. And it's so important for our guys to keep our quarterback clean. And I know he took some hits in the run game, but I thought from a pass protection standpoint, like, he was comfortable in there yesterday, and I thought he was elite in the pass game. And I think a lot of that was because he felt extremely comfortable in the pocket.
And when he talks about, usually when you're adding blockers, tight ends or running backs into that protection scheme, you usually give up sacks, because what defenses do is, hey, that running back staying in, we're going to green dog. Right. We're going to add on that guy, whoever's covering that running back. Guess what? You have a green light to go rush the quarterback now. And so by using wide receivers there, using Shakir as a chipper, using Gabe Davis as a chipper, those guys can't blitz, because now we can just release that guy into a route. And a lot of times what was happening is that guy was releasing after a chipping, and he was like the 4th guy in the progression. So Josh was working left to right, and then, there's number 4. He's wide open. Gabe Davis across the middle. Shakir across the middle. And I thought that was cool from, switching it up and not being predictable. But also, I do think it added some comfort to Josh, and that was important, which is partly why he went off against the Jags.
Yeah, I think that this week, Ty Johnson's availability is really interesting and key.
No doubt.
It was last week, too. No doubt about it. Yeah, I mean, I'm not diminishing it. Having Ty Johnson would have really helped them be able to kind of do a little bit more and have a little bit more in some options on 3rd down. I think this week's even more important. The difference between the defense they just faced last week and the defense they're facing this week, this defense gets to the quarterback and gets him to the ground. Last week's defense doesn't do that as much. They do a lot of simulated pressure. They do a lot of things to kind of force your hand. But now you're talking about, you got to keep Josh Allen upright. You can't allow him to be taking shots, taking hits, getting down to the ground. And I think this week, Ty Johnson, either A, as a pass pro guy, because he's good at pass protection and understanding, or B, as an outlet receiver this week, might be big. I think that's where it could really happen.
Yeah, and that's what the Bills asked their running backs to do when they do keep the running back in for protection. It's more of a scan protection. So normally, you have the 5 offensive linemen accounting for some type of combination up front as far as pass rushers go. And then that running back usually have to scan 1 to 2 guys. And okay, if number 1 goes, okay, he's got to pick him up. If number 1 doesn't go and number 2 does, he has him. And so it's a big job for a running back. And Ty Johnson's done it for years now for the Bills. But more important, like you said, when there's no one coming, his ability to get into a route and become QB friendly. I mean, against the Broncos last year in the playoffs, down the field, he was important in that game as an outlet.
That's right.
And being QB friendly. So Ty Johnson, yes, all Bills fans, we're going to be watching the injury report for him and his status going into the game against the Broncos. But to finish off this Jags game, Josh was playoff Josh, 28 for 35, 273 yards, a touchdown, 11 rushes for 33 yards, 2 touchdowns there. He turns it up in the playoffs. What is it about him in the playoffs where he just elevates his game and therefore elevates his teammates' games in the playoffs?
You know, I always have a saying, I believe this in sports, Erik. You know, you think about the greatest, playoff performers ever. And, and I know that Josh has not won a championship. I get it. So,
Right.
if people want to be upset at the comparison, that's fine. But the greatest playoff performers ever, like the Jordans of the world, the Bradys of the world, the Jeters of the world, whoever they are, the best who have what you just said, they rise. I actually believe they don't rise more. I think everybody else kind of tightens up a little bit and they just stay always the same greatness, right? And I think my theory is everybody around them can't stay at that level because they're just so worried about what's happening or making a mistake.
Right.
But I mean, Josh, maybe he does. I don't know. It's just he's always the best player on the field, it seems like. And he's been that way for a long time. Not every game, I get it. He's had games where he hasn't been.
Sure.
But I just think that he, no matter the situation, no matter what it is, stays at the top of his game and never lets the moment get him to go lower than that. And I think that's why.
Josh's career in the postseason, 309.5 total yards per game, number 1 all time, 2.5 total touchdowns per game, number 3 all time, 35-6 touchdown to turnover ratio, number 1 all time, courtesy of Colin Ritchie, our producer. Great pull there. He just elevates his game. And we saw it here. We saw the efficiency. We saw him run play action, look at the deep shot. It's not there. I'm checking it down to Frank Gore. I'm checking it down to James Cook and Shakir. But then when those shot calls were there, he was taking them and he was just making his decisions much more decisively. When I watched this film, the coach's film on Monday, I almost felt bad for critiquing him at some of the taking the easy stuff during the year because I'm like, he just turns on a switch and all of a sudden he takes checkdowns.
How important do you think that self-scouting week was for him? I just think it was something that really mattered last week.
Oh, and that exactly what my next point was. That I think was important, essentially having that week off, the final week of the regular season, and allowing Josh Allen to self-scout and probably see the collection of plays that I'm sure the staff really cut up for him. And we're like, see, look, there's a 4-yard gain. There's a 4-yard gain. There's a 6-yard gain on first down because he was just hitting them all game. And, I dinged him a lot in the regular season for not checking it down or not throwing it away. But in this game, he was damn near flawless. And, he did some stuff in this game, just not from that perspective, but from the shoulders up, man. And everyone's like, oh, he just put the Superman cape on. Yeah, physically he can do that. But when I see plays from him where he's anticipating throws under dress with a guy free rushing right at him, these are plays that I want to see routinely from Josh week in and week out. Not just, doing things physically, but from the shoulders up. And I saw so many plays where he was staring down the barrel and just taking the pass down the field in the intermediate and deep areas and trusting, right, Sal?
That's right.
Trusting that those guys were going to really, pick it up down the field and catch it. And none other than Brandon Cooks on some of those plays down the field where he just threw it to a spot. He dropped the pin like he used to talk about, dropping a pin, and was trusting that Brandon Cooks.
I still can't believe the throw he made down the middle of the field of Brandon Cooks in that situation. I mean, you look at the back angle, like how did he know he'd be there? How did he get it off in time? It's incredible. Trust is key. Brandon Cooks, another tough drop, I'd call it. It was debatable, but he had one against New England, one against Cleveland. He had one here. And yeah, Josh keeps going to him. That just shows you how much he still trusts him, right? The most underrated, we talk about Josh. I've been doing a lot of different radio spots this week, nationally, Denver. And they say, oh, Josh, Superman. I say, to me, he's John Wayne plus Paul Bunyan plus Superman. All rolled into one is what he is. And we say it because of his physical traits and his toughness. What he doesn't get enough credit for is this.
Yes.
He is really good at understanding and diagnosing, and I don't think people give enough credit for that. I remember one time Brandon Beane, not too long ago, was talking about somebody in a press conference, and he's like, oh yeah, he's real high level IQ. And he said, he goes, not quite where Josh is. Like something like that was like a throwaway comment, like to say like, oh yeah, Josh is really great at that.
Yeah, and we saw it multiple times this game where he's anticipating breaks and anticipating that throw and throwing it to a spot and having that run, that tight end or wide receiver run, to the ball. Douglas says the throw to Knox too, layered right over the linebacker, sitting in the middle of the field. Yes, Alul Khan's in that passing lane. He gets it just up over. Same thing when they threw the comeback to Cooks on the sideline, where he threw it over the top of the linebacker that was in the flats, and it was tight coverage right there on the sideline, and Cooks brought it in. Like, he had so many throws in this game that he had to anticipate, and obviously anticipate is one thing, but even prior to the snap, he had a good idea on what the defense was going to do. So much so, he talked about it in his presser, right, Sal, about on that big shot to Cooks down the field on late in the game. He saw something on film that made them install that play, and I found it was actually against the Broncos, and that's taking it from the meeting room, installing a play, and then executing it in a high leverage moment. That was Superman to me, like when we're talking, not just the physical gifts, but from the shoulders up, man. If you can see, this is what he does in the playoffs that he doesn't do as often in the regular season. And again, those are the things we kind of critique at times, but I just thought he did so much great stuff from the shoulders up in this game, and it showed when you're talking efficiency play, but also those explosive plays down the field.
Going to need it again this week. Denver's got a great defense at all three levels. They really do. They get after the quarterback. Menino's amazing. And, of course, they have Patrick Surtain. Now, could really help the Bills. They don't have a number one in this case because, when you have a one you rely on so much and Pat Surtain takes them away, then you got to find other options. The Bills are like, okay, we already do this anyway. They don't have the great outside wide receiver core, which we know of. So, if you're going to, whoever he's going to be covering or whatever, you're confident to maybe go throw away from it anyway because that's just kind of how you operate your offense. But Josh is going to be at his best again, have to be, because this is a really, really good Broncos defense with a really good defensive coordinator.
So Gabe Davis, IR, out for the year. Shavers banged up as well. What are you thinking for targets for Josh? If we're on the offensive side of the ball, who are you thinking he's going to be thrown to come Saturday afternoon?
Okay, so they also opened the practice window for Curtis Samuel. So we'll see if Samuel comes back. Remember, he had a big touchdown against Denver last year in the playoff game, right? Yep. And you hope that he's been on IR for a while. I know he hasn't practiced, but if he's healthy and ready to rock and roll, maybe that could be something that you can really
need a speed,
take advantage. Or you also have speed with McCole Hardman you could bring up. Yeah. One of those guys is playing. I'd be surprised if it was Christian Wilkerson, who was added to the practice squad just today, by the way, or Steven Gosnell. I guess you could do that, but I'd be surprised. I think it's one of the two. I think it's either Curtis Samuel gets activated, which, by the way, I think if my math is right, they do have one open roster spot right now after all the moves that they made.
I read that. Yep.
So it's either Samuel gets put on the 53 after going through the week, or it's McCole Hardman gets elevated. But I think one of the two is active for the game, and that gives you a little bit more of an option. So I do think, I guess you could say both of them, but 5 wide receiver seems about right in this game. And then I think tight end, obviously Dalton Kincaid. He did have a boot on. Sean McDermott confirmed that the other day, but he said it was more precautionary. I think what happened, he hit his foot on the cameraman on the touchdown when he rolled.
Oh, I'll have to go back and look at that.
Yeah, I think because there was a camera angle that they showed him come out, and the guy who was holding it, you could see him, and I think I saw his foot come up. And I think he might have hit it on him. Yeah, that's I think what happened there. So anyway, obviously, so he should be okay. But to me, targets wise, you're talking Shakir, Cooks, Coleman, Shavers, and either Samuel or Hardman.
All right, real quick, Ed Oliver, what are we thinking about him?
It's good question. We're gonna find out more today.
Okay.
So it's a walkthrough. We can't watch practice. We can only go back out after. Tomorrow we'll get more of a chance to watch a little bit and kind of see what we see, tell you what we see. But the fact that the Bills opened his practice window this week, we do have precedent for the Bills opening practice windows and guys playing that week. It happened with Max Hairston, remember? They opened his practice window, he played that week. So it's not the bicep anymore, really. To me, it's the knee. I think the bicep was probably going to be on schedule last week or this week. Is his knee healthy enough to be able to help you in Denver?
All right, Sal, you got a lot going on, a lot of podcasts, a lot of appearances, radio spots, written content. Let everyone know where they can find you, where you're going to be, making some appearances on social media. and whatnot, and then wrap up the week. Let us know what the rest of this week looks like.
Yeah, so today, walkthrough for the Bills. Tomorrow, regular practice. Thursday will be a Sean McDermott on the radio with me Thursday this week, not Friday, Thursday, to give the actual injury designations because they come out on Thursday. That'll be when he says these guys aren't playing, these guys are questionable, whoever that is. That's Thursday on WGR Sports Radio 550. Hey, tomorrow night, Wednesday night, our friends at Sports City Pizza Pub, I'm going to be there with Tim Graham of The Athletic, Sneaky Joe DiBiase of WGR. We're talking Sabres because it's 0506 reunion night on Thursday.
Crew. I love it.
And Joe, that was his fandom when he was younger. That team that kind of got him, fandom was crazy. Tim Graham actually covered the Sabres during those years. So he's going to join me. We're going to have a lot of fun talking. Look at this. Hold on. Wait, I'm going to show you this right now. I'm giving away mini helmets, signed mini helmets.
Nice.
Sabres.
All
Who's
right.
that? That's a Pat LaFontaine signed mini helmet.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one.
Wait. How about this? I got signed pucks. And how about this? A signed Marty Biron jersey.
Wow, that's sharp.
I'm giving this stuff away tomorrow night at Sports City, man.
All right, guys, get down there. That's a good crew that Sal's going to be working with down there. We appreciate everyone tuning in live and later on YouTube and any podcast platform that you listen to. This has been Turf to Tape, presented by Thin Man Brewery. I'm your host, Erik Turner. That's Sal Capaccio. We'll see you next week.